The mining colony of Targos 5 circled around a quiet red star. Its surface was filled with metal towers, energy drills, and dust clouds that never cleared. It was not a place for peace. It was a place for survival, and for the first time in its history, a new kind of event was being held. The Strength Games, where warriors from many alien races would gather to prove their power. Humans had only recently arrived at Targos 5. Most of them were workers, builders, and tech specialists. Among them was Tomu, a slim young man who worked as a repair technician. He was clever, quiet, and had never been in a real fight. He spent most of his time fixing drones, eating cold meals, and staying out of trouble. Tomu had no interest in the Strength Games. He had heard stories about them, how the Raktal, a strong alien race with large frames and heavy bones, ruled every contest. They trained from childhood. They fought with honor, but also with brutal force. But a strange thing happened. One day, while Tomu was checking broken lights in the station hallway, he received a message on his tablet. The A. Screen blinked. "You have been accepted for match entry 12. Official combat pairing registered." Tomu's eyes widened. "What? I didn't sign up for anything." He ran to the admin office, confused and panicked. There, a tired-looking alien clerk checked the database. "You were entered by your unit leader," said the clerk. "Looks like someone thought it would be funny." Tomu froze. It had to be Meek, the big loader operator who often made jokes about how weak humans were. It was just a prank, but the system had locked the entry. "You can't cancel it now," the clerk said. "Only way out is to forfeit in the ring. But you'll still have to show up." Tomu left the office, heart sinking. He was going to be in the arena. Even worse, he didn't even know who his opponent was. The announcement came later that night. On the huge display board in the center plaza, names began to appear. Alien citizens and workers gathered to see the list. Then it appeared match. 12, Tomu, human, versus Brugga, Raktal. The crowd gasped. Brugga was known across the station. She was a warrior from the mountains of Raktal Prime. She was taller than most aliens, with deep purple skin, 4 braids that fell past her shoulders, and arms thicker than Tomu's chest. Her record in the arena was perfect. She never lost. Some said she once flipped a stone beast with one hand, and now she was facing a human who had never fought before. Tomu stood frozen in the crowd. He couldn't even feel his hands. "Who is that?" someone whispered. "That human is going to be crushed." The next day came fast. Tomu stood inside the waiting zone wearing a light armor suit. It felt too big on him. He stretched his arms, trying to calm down. His heart was racing like a wild engine. He peeked through the gate. The arena was full. Beings of all kinds filled the stands. Tall insectoids, glowing-eyed rock people, thin blue air-dwellers, and, of course, Raktali. Soldiers, all waiting for the fight to start. Then the gate opened. Tomu walked in. He heard a few laughs and shouts. He looked like a child stepping onto a battlefield. And then she arrived. Brugga stepped into the arena like thunder. Each step made the ground shake. She wore heavy armor on her legs and arms. Her eyes scanned the field, then locked on Tomu. She grinned. He tried to keep his face calm, but she was twice his size. Her muscles rippled with every breath. The announcer began to speak in multiple languages. The crowd quieted, and then Brugga raised her voice. "I'll crush you, human." Her. Words echoed across the walls. Some laughed. Others cheered. Tomu just stood still. The bell rang. Tomu didn't charge. He knew better. He had watched past matches. Charging Brugge meant getting smashed into the dirt. Instead, he moved slowly, circling, trying to stay light. On his feet, Brugge walked forward, arms wide, daring him to strike. "You run like a shadow," she growled. "Are you made of paper?" Tomu kept moving. He ducked under her first swing. Her arm passed over his head like a falling tree. He rolled and backed away. The crowd grew louder. Brugge charged this time. She grabbed for his chest, but Tomu dropped and slid under her legs. Dust flew. She turned and came again, faster. Tomu couldn't win by strength. He had to survive. He had to last. Minutes passed like hours. Brugge swung, slammed, leapt, and missed. Tomu kept escaping barely. His training in balance and motion, which he had learned from fixing unstable machines on spinning rigs, helped him more than he expected. Then Brugge roared. She lunged and caught him with one hand. She lifted him high. Her shadow fell over him. The crowd held their breath. "This ends now," she said. Tomu twisted in her grip, grabbed her arm, and used the drop of her lift to swing himself around her shoulder. He slipped out and landed behind her. The crowd exploded with noise. Brugge turned, her face not angry but surprised. Tomu backed away, panting hard. Sweat ran down his neck, but he was still standing. The bell rang. End of round one. Both fighters stood in their corners. Brugge looked across the field at Tomu. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't laugh this time, and Tomu, still breathing fast, finally allowed himself a small smile. He was not broken. Not yet. The rest area behind the arena was quiet. Tomu sat on a low bench, wiping his face with a cloth. His arms were shaking. His chest moved up and down with fast breaths. He had survived the first round, but barely. In the corner of the room, a screen showed a replay of the fight. It showed Brugge lifting him like a doll. Then it showed him slipping behind her shoulder and landing safe. The crowd had cheered louder than anyone expected. A tall man from the human group, Juno, stepped in with a water bottle. He was one of the engineers, but also had trained in old Earth martial arts. "You did good," Juno said, "but you can't. Keep running. Round 2 will be harder." Tomu nodded slowly. "I know. She's learning my moves too." Juno sat beside him. "Then it's time you use what makes you different. You're not strong, but you know how to use movement. You're light. She's heavy. Let her fall under her own weight." Tomu stared at the wall. "She's like a living wall made of stone." "Even stone can be turned," Juno said. "With the right angle." The bell rang again. Tomu stepped into the arena. The crowd roared. He saw alien hands waving and lights blinking from the seats. The fans were more excited now. The human had lasted 1 round. That had never happened before. Brugge stepped in next. Her armor was dusty from the last match. Her jaw was tight. She didn't smile this time. She looked at Tomu with a focused stare. The announcer called the names. The fighters stood in the middle. Brugge took a deep breath. "You move like wind," she said. "But I will still catch you." Tomu gave a small nod. "You can try." The bell rang. Round 2 began. Brugge moved fast, faster than before. She swung, her arms in wide arcs, trying to trap Tomu. He ducked and slid again, but she was adapting. Her legs shifted better this time. She didn't lose balance like before. Tomu ran toward the wall and jumped, using a low ledge to flip himself away from her reach. Brugha chased, slamming her foot into the ground. A small crack formed where she stepped. Tomu used her force against her. When she charged, he spun to the side, letting her stumble forward. The crowd cheered at the clever dodge, but Brugha didn't stop. She turned quick and caught his arm. This time he couldn't twist out. She lifted him again, this time higher. Tomu kicked hard and struck her shoulder. Not enough to hurt, but enough to shift his position. His feet swung upward. In the air, he wrapped one leg around her thick arm and pulled back. Brugha staggered. The crowd leaned in. Tomu locked his legs and arms around her arm and dropped his full body backward. It was not perfect, but it was something close to a shoulder hold, the kind of move humans used in training matches. It was rare here. Brugha had never seen it before. She grunted. Then she spun. Tomu hit the ground hard but didn't let go. He pulled more. Brugha let out a loud growl and slammed her free hand into the floor. She bent her knees and dropped down. Her full body weight came crashing on Tomu. The air left his lungs. The hold broke. He rolled to the side, coughing, barely able to see straight. Brugha stood up, shaking her arm. It had worked. She felt the pressure. But now she was angry. "You fight strange," she said, "like a bird trying to tangle with a bear." Tomu got to his knees and looked up. "Maybe the bird is faster than—" The bear. Brugha smiled a little, just for a second. Then she charged again. This time, Tomu didn't run. He waited. Just before she reached him, he dropped and used both feet to kick her shin. Her leg moved. Her balance shifted. Tomu spun to the side and grabbed behind her knee. He pulled with all his strength. Brugha tipped. It was like watching a mountain fall. Her body twisted, and she hit the ground on her side. Dust flew. The sound shook the walls. The crowd exploded. With noise, Tomu jumped on her back and tried another lock. He wrapped his arm under her chin and pulled. She pushed back with force. She stood on her knees with Tomu on her back, trying to throw him off. She reached behind her head, grabbed his leg, and flipped him forward. He landed hard, but this time rolled with it. His shoulder burned, but he kept moving. Brugha stood again, breathing fast. The bell rang. End of round 2. Both fighters stood on their sides of the arena. Both were covered in dust. Both were tired. The crowd stood and clapped, making thunder-like noise with hands and feet. Brugha looked across the field at Tomu. This time her face was calm. "You are not weak," she said. "You are something else." Tomu smiled, wiping blood from his lip. "You're not just strong. You're smart. I see that now." Brugha nodded slowly. "Next round will be final. No holding back." Tomu nodded. "I wouldn't want anything less." After the match, back in the resting room, Tomu sat on the bench again. Juno came in with more water and bandages. "You surprised everyone," Juno said. "Even her," Tomu leaned back. "I'm not sure how long I can keep this up. She gets better every round." "You're doing more than fighting," Juno said. "You're showing something new to all of them, that humans can think, that we have our own way." Tomu didn't answer at first. He stared at his hands. They were shaking again, but not from fear. "She called me something else," Tomu said. "Not weak, not soft. She saw me as a fighter," Juno smiled. "That's respect, hard-earned." Outside, the announcer called for the final round. The arena lights glowed brighter. The crowd waited for the last battle, and this time, both fighters would step in with something new in their hearts, not just pride, but respect.
The night before the final round, The training room was quiet. Most of the fighters had gone to rest, but Tomu was still inside. Sitting cross-legged on the padded floor, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about every move he had used so far. His ribs hurt, his shoulder was sore, but his mind was awake. Tomu had come to this colony to fix machines, not to fight giants. But now, after 2 rounds with Brugge, everything had changed. He had felt fear, pain, and pressure. Yet he had also felt something stronger, the power of human technique, not brute force, but motion, balance, and control. The door opened. Juno walked in with a small tablet. He placed it next to Tomu and tapped it. A set of old Earth fighting videos began to play. Fighters on the screen used locks, throws, and leverage to beat bigger opponents. "You still want to do this?" Juno asked. Tomu nodded. "She's not just fighting me now. She's testing me. I want to finish this right." Juno sat beside him. Rayktali fighters are trained for impact. They know how to take hits and give them. But they don't train for movement. That's your path. Tomu watched the screen. He studied the angles, the grips, the way a small twist could break balance. He remembered how Brugge had almost crushed him in round 2. He had escaped not with strength, but with timing. That was the key. The final round day arrived. The arena was more crowded than ever. News of the human's strange style had spread across the colony. Drones flew overhead, recording the event for distant stations. Large alien eyes watched from the shadows. Warriors leaned forward in silence. Tomu stood at the gate, breathing steady. His body ached, but his focus was sharp. He wore light armor again, flexible and smooth, across the field. Brugge waited. She had no helmet this time. Her braids were tied back. Her arms were bare, showing thick muscle. Her legs shifted in strong rhythm. The announcer's voice filled the air. The crowd answered with cheers. Both fighters stepped into the center of the ring. Brugge looked down at Tomu. Her voice was calm. "I trained 4 years to face Rayktali warriors. But you are different. You fight with mind." Tomu gave a small smile. "And you fight with honor." "That matters to me." Brugge nodded. "Let this be a true match." The bell rang. The final round began. Brugge moved first. She charged fast, but not blindly. She had learned from the last rounds. She kept her steps low, trying to trap Tomu near the wall. Tomu stayed light on his feet. He bounced back and forth, drawing lines in his mind. Each step Brugge took left a small opening. He just needed to wait. Brugge lunged. Tomu ducked under her arm and slid behind her. He reached for her leg and tried a sweep. She stepped over it and spun. Her arm came down like a hammer. Tomu rolled to the side, missing the strike. Dust flew. The crowd roared. Tomu stood and moved, and close this time. He surprised Brugge by grabbing her arm and spinning his body around it. Using her own forward motion, he flipped her slightly off balance. It wasn't a throw, but it forced her to adjust. Brugge growled and dropped low, trying to grab him. Tomu stepped on her foot and twisted his body, landing on her back. He locked his legs around her waist and pulled her shoulder back. Brugge shifted her stance and stood. With Tomu still on her, she moved toward the wall and leaned back, trying to crush him. Tomu released at the last second and slid away. Cheers filled the air. Brugge turned, smiling for the first time in the match. "Clever human," Tomu replied with a nod. "Strong warrior." They circled again. This time, Tomu let her grab him. She lifted him for a slam, but he used the lift to spin midair and lock both arms round her neck from behind. He squeezed, not to hurt, but to test. Brugge bent forward, rolled, and broke the hold. She dropped her elbow, but Tomu escaped again. Dust covered the arena. Both Fighters were breathing hard. Sweat glistened on their faces. Time passed slowly. Each move was sharper than before. Each escape brought more cheers. No one laughed now. No one saw a small human. They saw a fighter who could stand toe-to-toe with. A giant Bruga charged once more. Tomu dropped to the floor, using his legs to pull her knee forward. She lost balance for a second, and Tomu climbed on her back. He wrapped one arm around her neck, one around her arm, and twisted, a double hold. Not perfect, but enough to show his skill. Bruga struggled. She dropped to her knees, then stood again. But Tomu held on. The bell rang. End of final round. Silence fell over the arena. Both fighters stood in the middle, dust rising around them. Tomu stepped back, breathing hard. Bruga stood tall, her face calm. The referee stepped forward. Match ends in draw, he said. Both fighters showed skill, balance, and heart. A fight of equals. The crowd stood and cheered. Some shouted Tomu's name. Others called for Bruga. But many simply clapped for the spirit of the match. Bruga turned to Tomu and offered her arm. "You are more than fast," she said. "You are wise. You move my body, and you move my thinking." Tomu shook her arm. "You're more than strong. You fought with respect. That means more than winning." The two stood together. In the middle of the ring, side by side, Raiktali. Warriors watched in silence. Then slowly, some began to nod. A few stepped forward and clapped. Then more joined. It was not just a match. It was the start of something new. That night, Tomu sat near the arena wall, looking at the stars. The dust had settled. The lights had dimmed. Juno walked over and sat beside him. "You did something big today," Juno said. "I only wanted to survive," Tomu said with a small smile. "You did more than survive. You taught them something," Juno replied. "Sometimes strength is not enough. Sometimes the mind wins where muscles fail." Tomu looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, many races were still waiting to see what humans could do. And now, they had a new story to tell about a small human ant. The giant alien girl roared, "I'll crush you," human, but ended up calling him an equal. After the final round ended in a draw, everything on the Targos 5 colony began to shift. The people who once laughed at humans now watched them with curious eyes. Videos of Tomu's fight spread across nearby stations. Fighters and leaders from other colonies started asking questions about Earth combat methods. Bruga, the Raiktali warrior, returned to her training hall. She spent long hours reviewing every move she used in the match. She was proud, but not fully satisfied. Her people had always believed that strength won battles. But Tomu had shown her another way, a method that used the body like water, not stone. Tomu, on the other hand, went back to his daily work. He repaired drones, climbed metal towers, and drank weak tea in the dusty mess hall. But things were not the same. Workers from all species greeted him with respect. Young Raiktali even asked him about balance and movement. One morning, a message arrived on his comm screen. It came from the Raiktali Hall of Warriors. Second match approved. Bruga has requested a rematch with Tomu in front of the full council. The battle will be public. Time, 3 days from now. Location, Central Combat Grounds. Tomu stared at the message for a long time. He read it again and again. A rematch, not out of anger, but out of respect. He didn't hesitate. He typed one word, accepted. The news spread fast. This time, it wasn't just a crowd of workers watching. The Central Combat Grounds were 10 times larger than the first arena. The stands were filled with soldiers, teachers, builders, and travelers. Even leaders from nearby colonies came to watch. A large banner hung above the gates. It read, "Fire and Flesh, the rematched Tomu stepped into the warm-up chamber. Juno waited inside, holding a bag of gear. "You sure about this?" Juno asked. Tomu nodded. "She's not trying to defeat me. She's trying to test herself. And I want to see how far I've come." Juno handed him a smaller suit. "Designed for speed and flexibility. You're stronger now. But don't forget who you are. Your mind is your best weapon." Tomu smiled. "I remember in the open field." Brugga stood tall. Her armor was lighter this time. She had studied Tomu's methods. She had trained in ways her people never had before. She even worked with human engineers to learn more about locks and joint control. When Tomu stepped into the field, the crowd stood in silence. Both fighters walked to the center. No words were spoken at first. They simply bowed. Then Brugga said, "This is not a fight of pride. This is a fight of growth." Tomu replied. "Let's help each other grow." The bell rang. The rematch began. Brugga started slow, testing the air with soft steps. She was lighter on her feet now. Tomu noticed the change at once. She was not charging this time. She was waiting. Tomu circled, watching her arms, reading her hips. He knew the signals now. She moved like a trained wrestler, but she still had power behind her. She reached for his wrist. He turned and rolled under her arm, twisting behind her back. He aimed for a leg sweep, but she stepped back just in time. He smiled. "You learned that fast," she replied. "I remember pain well." Brugga moved in close. Her hand caught his shoulder. She spun, trying to use a new throw. Tomu bent his knees and pulled backward, turning her weight against her. Both fell, landing side by side. Dust filled the air. The crowd roared. Tomu jumped up and rolled to safety. Brugga stood slower but steady. She clapped once. "Good turn." They charged again. This time, Tomu climbed her body like a ladder, locking both legs around her chest and swinging downward. She stumbled. He rolled behind and pulled her arm into a low trap. Brugga dropped to the ground, and Tomu flipped over her back again, escaping just in time. Every moment was faster than before. Every move was sharper. They were not just fighting. They were dancing halfway through the match. Both fighters stood still for a moment. Their chests moved with fast breaths. Their arms were covered in dust and sweat, but their eyes were calm. The crowd didn't cheer this time. They simply watched. Like students. Tomu spoke softly. "You've become quicker than me." Brugga shook her head. "No, you taught me how to move. I'm just giving it back." Tomu stepped forward again. This time, he faked a jump, then dropped low, grabbing both of Brugga's legs. She started to fall, but twisted midair and landed on her hands, flipping back upright. Tomu laughed once. "Now you're just showing off." Brugga smiled. Maybe they locked again. Arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder. Tomu tried a lock. Brugga tried a lift. Neither worked. Then Brugga leaned in close. "I have one new move," she said. Tomu looked up. "Then show me." Brugga stepped sideways, hooked her leg behind Tomu's foot, and pushed forward. Tomu fell backward, surprised by the clever trick. Before he could react, she dropped gently on top, pinning him down with her full weight. He struggled but could not move. The crowd stood again, not cheering, just watching. Tomu tapped her arm twice. "Hold complete." Brugga stood and pulled him up. "You let me use your own style," Tomu said. Brugga nodded. That's what learning is. The match was over. The crowd began to clap, not wildly, but with deep respect. The Reiktali Council stepped forward. One of the elders raised both hands. "This was more than a match," the elder said. "This was the future, one built not on victory, but on understanding." Brugga and Tomu bowed to the council, then to each other. Later that night, the training hall was quiet. Bruga sat with Tomu on the stone bench. A single lamp glowed above. "You didn't lose," she said. Tomu smiled. "You didn't either." They looked at the stars above the dome. "In my world, strength is still everything," Bruga said. "But now I know strength can be many things." Tomu looked up. "And in my world, respect must be earned. Today, you earned mine." She nodded. We both climbed. Not to crush each other, but to rise. They sat in silence, knowing the crowd outside was still talking, not about who won, but about how to. Fighters from different worlds had become more than opponents. They had become equals, and the stars above seemed to shine just a little brighter. After the great rematch, life on the mining colony of Targos 5 slowly changed. The fighting matches became less about winning and losing. They became about learning and respect. Tomu and Bruga, once fierce opponents, had now become something unexpected. Friends. Tomu returned to his work fixing drones and machines. But now many came to see him. Some were curious about the strange human who fought with mind and speed. Others wanted to learn the new techniques he used. Even Bruga visited often. She was no longer just a warrior. She was a student too. One afternoon, Tomu was repairing a broken drone near the main workshop. Sparks flew from the welding tool. Suddenly, Bruga's heavy footsteps approached. "Tomu," she said, her voice low but friendly. "I want to try some of your moves. Teach me how to move like you do." Tomu wiped sweat from his brow and smiled. "I will teach you everything I know, but you must promise to teach me your strength in return." Bruga nodded. A fair trade. They found a quiet training room. The walls were metal and covered in scratches from past fights. Tomu showed her how to bend knees, keep balance, and use small movements to stay light on feet. Bruga tried, but her large frame made the moves slow at first. "Your body is like a mountain," Tomu said kindly. "It takes time to flow like water around it." Bruga laughed, a deep, rich sound. "Then teach me how to be water." Days turned into weeks. Tomu taught her the ways of human movement. Bruga taught him how to use raw power and endurance. Together, they practiced, fell, and rose again. The other Reiktali warriors watched with surprise. Some whispered that Bruga was changing. She no longer moved like a stone giant. Instead, she flowed like a river. The trainers took notes and asked to move for lessons. One day, while they practiced in the open yard, a group of young aliens approached. They looked shy but eager. "We want to learn," said a small insectoid with many arms. "Your way is strange but powerful." Tomu smiled. "Anyone can learn. It is about patience and heart." Bruga nodded. "Strength is not only muscle. It is how you use your body." The training group grew. Soon, humans and aliens trained side by side. New friendships formed across worlds. But not all were happy. The Reiktali elders grew concerned. They worried the old ways might be lost. They believed strength was the only true power. Bruga's friendship with a human and her new moves seemed strange and risky. One elder, called Vasher, came to speak with Bruga. "Your new ways weaken the warrior's spirit," Vasher said sternly. "You must choose the old strength or the new path." Bruga looked at him calmly. "Both have value. The old ways taught me power. The new ways teach me balance. Together, they make me stronger." Vasher shook his head. "You risk the future of Roctal pride." Bruga replied, "The future is not built on pride alone. It is built on respect and understanding." Vasher left, but Bruga knew the elders were watching. One evening, Tomu and Bruga sat outside the training hall. The red sun was setting, painting the sky in deep orange and purple. "I never thought I would find a friend like you here," Tomu said quietly. Bruga smiled, her eyes soft. I never thought a human could teach me so much. You have patience and heart. That is rare in my world. Tomu looked up at the stars beginning to shine. Maybe that is why we are here, to learn from each other. Brugge nodded. Together, we can face anything. Their friendship was no longer just about fighting. It was about trust, about hope. But rumors began to spread. A new danger was coming to TRGOS-5. The old machine army. A fleet of robots banished long ago from Roctal space was returning. These machines were cold and deadly. They followed no rules. They destroyed anything in their path. Brugge heard the news from the warriors. We must prepare. She told Tomu, this fight will not be like the games. It will be for survival. Tomu nodded. Then we must be ready together. The bond between human and alien was stronger than ever, and soon it would be tested like never before. Days before the machine attack, Tomu and Brugge trained harder than ever. They taught their group new ways to fight. They shared ideas and built traps. Brugge lifted heavy stones while Tomu showed the group how to move silently through the dark tunnels. Strength and mind, Brugge said to the fighters. Both are weapons, Tomu smiled. And trust is the strongest weapon of all. The colony was ready. When the machines finally arrived, the battle was fierce. Robots moved like shadows. Attacking without pause, Brugge charged with all her power. Smashing metal bots with huge fists, Tomu led small squads, using tricks and traps to stop the machines. In the heat of battle, Tomu found himself face to face with a massive enemy bot. It grabbed him with metal claws and tried to crush him. Tomu remembered Brugge's lessons and moved quickly. He twisted his body, slipping from the claws and climbing onto the bot's back. Using what he had learned, Tomu pushed buttons and pulled wires. The machine hissed and slowed. Then it stopped. Brugge saw this and rushed forward. With a mighty roar, she smashed the bot into pieces. Together, human and alien fought side by side. After the battle, the colony was safe but tired. The fighters looked around at the broken machines and damaged buildings. Brugge and Tomu stood together. They were bruised but proud. You were right, Brugge said. Strength alone could not have won this fight. Tomu nodded, and neither could speed alone. Their friendship had become a symbol of hope for all. From that day forward, the colony trained as one. Humans and aliens learned from each other. The old Ricktali ways changed, but they grew stronger. Brugge and Tomu stood at the center of this new world, a world built on respect, friendship, and the power of two very different people who dared to climb together. The dust had settled on Targos 5. The machines were defeated. The colony was safe. But more than that, something new had grown between the people, a bond of respect, understanding, and hope. Brugge and Tomu stood side by side before the great hall. Round them, crowds gathered, humans, Ricktali, and many others. The leaders of the colony prepared to speak. Brugge looked at Tomu. We have come far, she said softly. From strangers to fighters to friends, Tomu smiled. And from friends to leaders. The elder from the Ricktali Council stepped forward. His voice was strong and clear. Today, we honor not only the strength of arms but the strength of spirit. Tomu and Brugge have shown us that courage comes in many forms. The crowd cheered. In the days that followed, life on the colony began to change in small ways. Training became a mix of old Ricktali strength and human agility. Meetings were held with fighters from different worlds sharing their ideas. Tomu found himself teaching more often, not just humans, but aliens who wanted to learn his ways. One day, Brugge came to him with a thoughtful look. There's a mission, she said, beyond this colony. A chance to carry our new way to other places. Tomu listened carefully. You mean to take this friendship further? Brugge nodded. To show that respect and strength can travel beyond. The mission was set. A group of chosen fighters would leave Targos 5 to visit other colonies and worlds. They would share the story of the battle, the friendship, and the new way to fight and live. Tomu was chosen as a leader. Brugge stood beside him. Together, they would face unknown stars. Before leaving, the whole colony gathered in the great square. Brugge spoke to the crowd. We carry your hopes, your courage. We are not just warriors. We are ambassadors of respect. Tomu added, we will climb higher. Together. The crowd cheered with hope and pride. The journey through space was long and full of wonder. New stars, new planets, and new faces awaited them wherever they went. Stories of human and Rayktali friendship spread quickly. On one distant world, a council of elders asked, how do you fight with such balance? Brugge smiled. By knowing that strength is more than power, it is trust and understanding. Tomu added, by climbing together, not over each other. Back on Targos 5, the colony grew stronger. The old fears between species faded. New generations learned from both Rayktali and human teachers. One night, Tomu and Brugge stood again under the stars, the same stars that had watched their first fight. Brugge said, I never imagined a human could teach me so much. Tomu replied, and I never imagined an alien could become my greatest friend. They laughed softly. Their story became a legend. The tale of a small human and a giant alien girl who fought, learned, and climbed together. A story told to every new fighter, reminding them that true strength comes from heart, mind, and respect. Brugge and Tomu knew the future would bring new challenges, but they also knew they would face them side by side, because sometimes the greatest victory is the respect earned. The air on Targos 5 was heavy with tension. The sky was darkened by thick clouds of dust and smoke. The machine army had arrived, stronger and more dangerous than anyone had expected. Robots with cold metal bodies moved in perfect formation. Their glowing eyes scanned the colony, searching for targets. Brugge stood at the front line, her muscles tense and ready. She wore her light armor, scratched and worn from training. Beside her was Tomu, calm and focused. They led a team of fighters made up of humans, Rayktali, and other alien species. Remember, Tomu said quietly, this fight is not just about power. It's about teamwork, patience, and thinking ahead. Brugge nodded. We fight with strength and mind. The battle began. The machines attacked swiftly. Giant bots slammed into buildings, crushing metal and stone. Small robots swarmed in groups, firing energy blasts. The colony's defenses shook under the pressure. Brugge charged forward, using her powerful arms to smash a group of smaller bots. Each strike echoed like thunder. Her feet pounded the ground as she moved like a living storm. Tomu moved differently. He avoided the blasts and traps, crawling through vents and narrow tunnels. His quick mind found weaknesses in the machine's design. At one point, Tomu spotted a massive enemy bot, larger than any they had fought before. It stood like a metal giant, its limbs made of thick steel. The bot's eyes glowed red with cold. Light. Tomu called to Brugge. That one. I will try to disable it from the inside. You keep the others away. Brugge growled and nodded. Be careful. Tomu slipped through a broken wall and entered the bot's interior. The inside was dark and cold. Wires and circuits lined the walls. The bot's systems hummed with power. Using his small tools and quick fingers, Tomu searched for the control panel. He found it behind a metal grate and began to work. Outside, Brugga fought with fury. She caught a group of bots and crushed them one by one. Her breath came fast, but she did not stop. Her hands and feet were bruised and bleeding, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Suddenly, the giant bot lifted its arm to strike. Brugga dodged just in time, but the ground shook beneath her. Inside, Tomu pulled wires and pressed buttons. Sparks flew. The bot shuddered. Tomu shouted, "Now, Brugga." Brugga charged at the bot's leg. She hit it with all her might. The bot staggered. Tomu pushed one last switch. The giant bot's eyes dimmed and it slowed. Then it stopped completely, falling to the ground with a loud crash. The battle continued. The machines adapted and attacked harder, but the fighters had learned to work together. Tomu's mind and Brugga's strength made a powerful team. In one fierce moment, a small group of bots trapped Tomu. Metal arms closed around him. He struggled but could not break free. Brugga saw this and rushed to his side. She smashed the bots. With heavy blows, her voice roared like a wild beast. "Tomu, hold on!" With a mighty swing, she broke the last bot's arm. Tomu was free. Together, they fought back to back, moving as one. As the sun began to rise, the machine army was defeated. The colony was damaged but alive. Fighters cheered, and tired smiles appeared on many faces. Brugga and Tomu stood in the center of the field. Their bodies were sore, their clothes torn, but their eyes shone with pride. "You fought well," Brugga said, her voice soft but strong. Tomu smiled. "We fought together." Brugga nodded. "Strength is more than muscle. It is heart and mind." Tomu looked around at the other fighters and trust. After the battle, the leaders of the colony held a ceremony. They honored all who had fought bravely. Brugga and Tomu were called forward. The crowd cheered louder than ever. An elder stepped up and said, "Today, we saw the power of unity. The strength of many is greater than the strength of one." Brugga raised her fist for the colony. Tomu raised his hand for the future. The crowd answered, "For the future." That night, as the stars shone above, Tomu and Brugga sat side by side. The colony was quiet now. "We won because we stood together," Tomu said. Brugga smiled. "And because we learned from each other." Tomu looked at the stars. "There is much more to come. Many challenges." Brugga nodded. "But we will face them together." Their friendship had become a symbol, a story to tell, a proof that even the strongest and the cleverest from different worlds could climb and rise as one.